This is our Forex blog for September 12th, 2011, and like most days, we really want to buy the strongest currencies versus the weakest. We have the dollar and the yen, which are the two pairs that most people trade the most, and then all the other pairs on the bottom. You want to find the strong ones, like last night until about maybe 4:30, the yen was incredibly strong. Anything at or above 80 on the real-time histogram, and you can see if you see moves of strength followed by brief amounts of weakness, and it's not even close, the peaks aren't even close, it's very likely that that previous strength will continue, especially when the intermediate time frame trend is up. Underneath that we have the daily trend, underneath that we have the weekly, and underneath that we have the monthly. So we have real-time, intermediate, daily, weekly, monthly trends, all in a very easy to read format, and the way this is formulated, it takes many of our statistical tools, 5 in this one to be exact. 3 of them measure the direction of the trend, what percentage of yen pairs are going up using multiple different methods, and then 2 of them use the intensity of that trend. So when you have the vast majority of yen pairs going up and doing so with incredible intensity, you can see plus 80 in higher readings. Whenever it hits plus 100, that is an incredible trend, and you're really likely most times to make 20 to 30 pips or more. Sometimes they go 50 to 150 pips, but you can usually expect whenever it hits 100 strength for at least a bar or two. Anytime you see 2 bars right here at about a little bit after midnight, that trend's very, very strong. And if you trade that against one of the weakest ones, which, let's scroll back to euro here. Euro was mildly weak. The Australian was probably the weakest one. So if you look at selling the weak Australian, the weakest, versus the strongest yen at in fact, even many hours before that, the yen was strong too. Let's bring that chart up and you can see here a couple hours before midnight, but like I said, 10-15 minutes after 12 o'clock, notice it fell from 80.36 all the way down to 78.91. I mean, that's just a huge 130 pip, 140 pip move that continued after that. Like I said, anytime you see incredible strength on all time frames versus another one that's incredibly weak on all time frames, you're going to kind of get this kind of a trade. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to use our software to find these strong trends and then get in on them, whether you wait for a pullback to get in or a sideways rectangle, 30-minute to 2-hour sideways rectangle breakout. So let's bring this up on a 5-minute chart here, and I'm going to show how to use the range bars, hopefully. Unfortunately, let me see, let's try that again here. Sometimes when I leave this running over the weekend, I have e-signal issues when I bring up a separate version of the software, and unfortunately that's the case. We haven't figured out why e-signal does that. I think they reset things. If you bring up a separate version of the software, sometimes that causes problems. So unfortunately I'm not going to be able to do the range analysis today. Let's look at some of the other ones that you could have traded against that super strong yen. The euro also was weak. Here we go. Let's find the euro yen. And notice also a nice little sideways rectangle pattern, and it fell 125 pips. And this would be an example of a sideways rectangle pattern. This would be an example of a pullback trade, and as long as when currencies are underneath the lower containment band, usually they're going to find support. We have major support right here and one of my Fibonacci profit target levels, which nailed the low almost perfectly, and you got this huge bounce off of it. Notice the yen's strength remains strong. It had the most weakness from 4 to 5, and then at 5 it became weak. Now you don't know if this weakness is going to continue, but if it kind of falls off a cliff like that, you can assume the previous strength will come back because it's pretty much up on all time frames, and it did, but only for about 20 minutes before the weakness came back. Notice weakness and even less strength. It's very safe to assume that the previous weakness will come back, and you can be looking for sells in the yen at 8. What was the strongest one at 8? It appears that it would probably have been the euro. So at 8 o'clock, the euro yen would have been a good time to look to buy that. Here's 8 o'clock right here. You got this little pullback. You wait for it to start going back up. You might have been in here at 105.05, and you can see it went up about 45 pips, 50 pips. So currency meter finds the move on the way down and plenty other counter trend moves sell. Lots of pips to be had earlier. And when the yen lost its strength and went weak, and especially right here when you see extreme weakness fall by almost nothing in terms of strength, that weakness is likely to continue. It doesn't mean it's going to continue for a long time, because we are in a very strong longer term uptrend. Now the dollar really never had the intensity of extreme intensity that the yen had, and about 4:30 right here you can see some weakness, no strength. 5:30 it would have been safe to assume the dollar is going to go up again. 5:30 the Swiss was strong, the New Zealand was strong, so you could have been looking for New Zealand dollar buys at 5:30. Notice right here at 5:30 it's kind of going sideways, breaks out, goes sideways, breaks out. You got a pullback trade, goes up, up. From 5:30, this one went up about 80 pips in the next couple hours. The Swiss also was, mildly strong today. The intermediate time frame trend was up, but keep in mind the daily, weekly, monthly was down. So that, it's always less of a high odds trade when you see some strength and the longer term trends don't confirm it. Sometimes it's a counter trend day, and even though the Swiss might have been weak for the previous 3 or 4 or 5 days or a week or two, today it can be strong all day, as it may have been down too much and it's pulling back in the opposite direction today. So that, just watch for the peaks. If you see peaks and then the weakness isn't that much, it's not nearly at the 80, or you have one bar of weakness, when that strength comes back right here at 705, you definitely can be looking to buy the Swiss yen or sell the dollar Swiss. If you look at the dollar Swiss today, you can see when that became strong, went down. You have a pullback trade right here, down, pullback trade down, pullback trade down, pullback trade down. You made money on it every single time. When the dollar was weak and the Swiss was strong, it was pretty much a no-brainer.